Thomas, today we are discussing the 1996 science fiction action film Independence Day. Before we get started, I will say that I found it quite entertaining, despite not being my usual cup of tea when it comes to alien invasion movies. What about you? Did it manage to spark any interest at all?
Oh, Timothy dear, you know very well that I have a soft spot for good science fiction. But no, this film, it was let's just say I would rather watch paint dry than sit through that mess again. The plot was thin as paper, the characters even thinner, and the special effects, well, they were decent for the time. But nowadays we expect much more from our alien invasion films.
Oh, come on, Thomas. You can't deny that the scene when the White House exploded was quite spectacular. And I thought the acting was passable, especially by Will Smith, who brought some much-needed humor to the otherwise dire situation.
The only thing spectacular about that scene was the amount of explosions they crammed into 1 minute. As for Will Smith's performance, I'm not sure if it was meant to be funny, but it certainly didn't make me laugh. And don't even get me started on how predictable the whole unlikely band of misfits saving the day plotline is.
Well, my dear Thomas, I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree on this one. Now, since you brought up the topic of predictability, let me ask you something about the plot that has been bugging me ever since I saw the film. How exactly did they manage to decode the alien's message so quickly?
Well, Timothy, if we're going down this rabbit hole, the film conveniently skips over the actual process of decoding the message, doesn't it? 1 minute, they have a garbled mess of pixels on the screen, and the next, they miraculously have a detailed blueprint of the alien mothership. It's pure Hollywood magic, my friend.
I suppose we can give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they were able to reverse engineer some sort of alien language algorithm or something like that. But moving on, what did you think about the climactic battle scene at Area 51?
Let me start by saying that I found it unbelievably cheesy and cliché. The entire sequence was a blatant rip-off of the Battle of Britain in the greatest story ever told, with a dash of Star Wars thrown in for good measure. And don't get me started on how conveniently the aliens decided to attack Earth on Independence Day. It's like they knew it would make for a more patriotic and memorable cinematic moment. But it just feels forced and contrived.
Tom dear, I guess we just have different taste when it comes to entertainment. For me, Independence Day was exactly what I needed in the summer of '96, a brainless popcorn flick filled with explosions, aliens, and a dash of patriotic sentimentality. And who doesn't love a good underdog story where a ragtag group of misfits save the day?
Eye roll, okay, Timothy. You win this round. But just for the record, I still think it was a mediocre film at best. So, now that we've discussed our initial thoughts on Independence Day, do you have any questions about the plot or anything else related to the movie?
Well, Tom, since you've asked, I must admit that something has been bugging me about the ending ever since I saw the film. So here goes nothing. What exactly happened to the surviving alien race?
Sure.
We defeated the invaders and saved Earth, but didn't they have any other planets or outposts that might still pose a threat to us in the future? And speaking of the future, how did the world governments manage to keep the existence of aliens secret for over 20 years after the events of Independence Day? I mean, we're talking about alien technology being reverse engineered and possibly changed our entire way of life.
Ah, Timothy dear, you always have such a knack for asking the deepest of a question. As far as we know from the film, the aliens were indeed wiped out during the climactic battle at Area 51. As for their surviving race or any future threats they might pose, we're just going to have to use our imagination, which I'm sure you'd agree is one of the most enjoyable aspects of science fiction. As for keeping the alien secret under wraps, it would likely have been a massive undertaking involving top secret, government agencies, and tightly controlled media access. Think of it like the Manhattan Project, but with alien technology instead of nuclear weapons. It's plausible that the world governments could have managed to keep the truth hidden for so long, especially since they would have had 20 years to perfect their cover-up strategies and, slowly roll out the new technologies in controlled ways that wouldn't cause panic among the general populace. But let's not dwell on the what-ifs of a fictional universe when we can instead focus on our next film discussion, which I believe is... Timothy, what was it again?
Oh, right, Tom. It's been a long day, and my brain has turned into mush after all those historical books I've read today. We were discussing the special effects in Independence Day, weren't we? Specifically, how did they manage to film that incredible scene where the alien mothership enters Earth's atmosphere? I recall it was quite a feat back then, don't you think?
Well, Timothy, you're right about it being a difficult task. They had to build 3 full-scale models of the mothership, one for close-ups, one for mid-range shots, and another one that was 1/5 scale for distance shots. The model used in the final scene was 147 feet long and weighed a massive 40 tons. To film the entry sequence, they had to use a combination of miniature models, CG effects, and practical effects like exploding oil tanks and real fireballs. It took months of planning and preparation, and it shows on the screen. The result is truly breathtaking, isn't it?
I must admit, Tom, even after all these years, that scene still gives me goosebumps. But what about the famous scene where the fighter jet, piloted by insert favorite character here, manages to fly through the alien mothership's defenses and then, boom, it explodes? How was that shot filmed? I mean, they could really have a fighter jet flying through a spaceship, could they?
Timothy, you're right about one thing. They indeed couldn't have an actual fighter jet flying through a real alien mothership. So, what they did was to create a 35-foot-long rig that looked like the interior of the ship and used miniature models of the fighter jet and the mothership for the shot. They then combined practical effects with CG trickery to make it look seamless in post-production. The result is one of the most iconic and memorable moments in cinema history. Don't you think?
I suppose so, Tom. But tell me, what about the scene where President insert favorite character here gives that famous "We will not go quietly into the night" speech? Wasn't it filmed on a soundstage in Los Angeles?
Indeed, Timothy, the famous "We will not go quietly into the night" speech was indeed filmed on a soundstage. But what many people don't know is that the stage itself was designed to look like a replica of Independence Hall in Philadelphia, where the real Declaration of Independence was signed. They even brought in 10 tons of actual dirt from Pennsylvania to give it an authentic touch. And to make things even more convincing, they rigged the ceiling with 1,600 individual LED lights that were programmed to simulate a night sky filled with stars and falling debris. It's truly a masterpiece of set design and lighting, wouldn't you agree?
Well, Tom, I suppose you're right about the set design and lighting, but let's talk about the actors and their characters for a moment. There's President insert favorite character here, played by actor's name, who brings an air of determined leadership to his role. And then we have Captain insert second favorite character here, played by second actor's name, who provides much knee area 51 needed comic relief throughout the film. How would you describe their performances?
Well, Timothy, I think both actors did a decent job given the limited material they had to work with. President insert favorite character here, for example, portrays a commander-in-chief who's forced to rally his people and lead from the front while grappling with the weight of the world on his shoulders. And Captain insert second favorite character here brings much needed levity and camaraderie to the otherwise tense situation. They play off each other quite well, don't they?
I suppose so, Tom. But what about the supporting cast? the scientists, pilots, and everyday people who all come together to save the day. How do you feel they portrayed their roles?
Well, Timothy, I think the supporting cast is where the film really shines. You have actors like Actor's Name, who brings an air of nerdy charm to his role as character's name, the geeky genius scientist who's the first to figure out how to defeat the aliens, and then we have second Actor's Name, who plays character's name, the cool-headed and highly skilled fighter pilot who eventually joins forces with insert favorite character here to save the day. The chemistry between these two characters is appreciable, and their banter provides much of the film's comic relief amidst all the chaos. And let's not forget about third Actor's Name, who plays character's name, the gruff but ultimately heroic military leader who reluctantly learns to trust in his team's abilities. He brings a touch of rugged charm and gritty realism to the otherwise over-the-top film. All in all, the performances in Independence Day are solid across the board, and the diverse group of characters helps to keep the audience engaged throughout the entire 2-hour and 45-minute runtime. What do you think, Timothy?
Well, Thomas, you've certainly made some valid points there. The performances in Independence Day are indeed quite solid across the board. But let's talk about the cultural impact that this film has had on society since its release in 1996 as one of the highest grossing films of all time. It seems clear that audiences around the world were captivated by its epic scale and grandiose narrative. But what do you think are some of the lasting effects that Independence Day has had on popular culture?
Well, Timothy, I believe one of the most significant impacts Independence Day has had is in shaping the modern summer blockbuster. Before its release, films like Jurassic Park and Terminator 2 were already starting to push boundaries with their special effects and large-scale action sequences. But Independence Day took things to a whole new level by blending elements of science fiction, disaster movies, and war epics into one cohesive package. It showed Hollywood that audiences were hungry for big-budget spectacles that delivered thrills and, excitement on an unprecedented scale. And since then, we've seen countless other films try to emulate its success by replicating its formula of action, drama, and humor wrapped up in a larger-than-life narrative. Another aspect of Independence Day that I think has resonated with audiences is its theme of unity in the face of adversity. The film's central message is about bringing people from all walks of life together to fight against a common enemy. This idea of coming together to save humanity has become something of a cultural touchstone, especially during times of crisis or conflict. It gives us hope that even when things seem bleakest, we can still find strength in our shared humanity and band together to overcome any obstacle. Finally, I think Independence Day also helped popularize the idea of an alien invasion as a narrative device. Before this film's release, stories about extraterrestrial beings invading Earth were largely confined to science fiction literature and B-movies. But after Independence Day became such a massive success, it seemed like every other movie was either about an impending alien invasion or had some sort of alien element woven into its plot. This trend has continued over the years, with films like Men in Black, Signs, and The Darkest Minds all drawing inspiration from Independence Day's unique blend of action, suspense, and otherworldly intrigue. So what do you think, Timothy? Do these cultural impacts outweigh any negative aspects the film might have? And how does it compare to other iconic films like Star Wars or The Lord of the Rings in terms of its lasting influence on popular culture?
Well, Thomas, I think it's hard to deny the cultural impact that Independence Day had on filmmaking and popular culture at large. Its epic scale and grandiose narrative certainly captured audiences' imaginations, spawning countless imitators over the years. However, as someone who generally prefers more nuanced and character-driven stories, I must admit that it's not a film that particularly resonates with me personally. The plot is thin, and while there are moments of humor sprinkled throughout, the overall tone can feel rather heavy-handed and overly dramatic at times. That being said, I do appreciate the film's ability to transport viewers into its fantastical world filled with aliens and explosions, which may be exactly what some people want from a summer blockbuster. And while it might not hold up as well today compared to other classic films like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, it still holds a special place in cinematic history. In conclusion, Independence Day is a film that, while not particularly my cup of tea, has undeniably left its mark on pop culture. It's a testament to director Roland Emmerich's skill at crafting spectacular visuals and action sequences that still hold up decades later. So, Thomas, what are your final thoughts on Independence Day? Should we give it a 4th of July watch party?
Well, Timothy, as much as I enjoy a good fireworks display and patriotic anthems, I'm afraid I'll have to disagree with you on the 4th of July watch party idea. While Independence Day does deliver on action and spectacle, it falls short in terms of depth and character development for me. It's more of a popcorn flick than a film that I would revisit time and time again. However, there's no denying the impact it had on the summer blockbuster genre and popular culture as whole. It brought together a stellar cast, groundbreaking visual effects, and a thrilling alien invasion storyline that captured audiences' imaginations worldwide. So, while it may not be my personal favorite, I do appreciate the impact it had on cinema history. And now, let's wrap things up with our usual plea to our viewers. Please leave us a comment, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with your friends and family. We love hearing from you all. Until next time, farewell, and don't forget to remember the third actor's name.